So regarding assignment 13, this is the one where we are going to code some things from a flowchart, or from several flowcharts actually. If we read the instructions, it says that A and B are to be created as separate PY files, whereas C, D, and E are functions. So we look at this one, it's actually not a very difficult flowchart to create. Excuse me, a pretty simple program to create. That's going to be the name of our program. That's going to be the name of our file. It wants us to input X, convert it to a float. Then if X is greater than 0, we're going to set a variable equal to true. Otherwise, we're going to set the variable equal to false, and then we're going to print out X followed by that variable, and then we're going to stop. So the description of this, the script will ask the user to input a number. The number is converted to a float. If X is positive, a variable named POS, pause, is set to true. Else pause is set to false. Then X is printed along with pause. So that one's pretty easy. The only thing that might be missing from here is we don't have a print statement going along with the input statement. We just have to kind of make it up. That understand that along with an input, we're going to need to tell the user what to enter. So over here's B, another one called SumY. This script asks the user to enter a number. It's converted into an int. Then there's a while loop. The while loop is going to keep running while that number is reduced. Say they entered 10. It's going to go from 10 to 1, adding all those numbers together, and then we will print the sum. So this is just a simple way of doing a summation loop. There are other ways of doing summation. So which one of these are we going to do? Well, I vote that we do, I don't know, the summation loop. Then I'll leave a for you to do, but that's pretty easy. So we'll bring idle up. I'm going to leave that flowchart sitting there kind of off the side. Hopefully it's easy enough to see. Tuck it to the side there. Alrighty. So that's our file name. You could write a description. Sums all the values between 1 and a number the user enters. Alright. So that's going to be our accumulator. Sum is going to be our accumulator. Sum is equal to 0. Now sum is actually an extraordinarily bad variable name because it's also the name of a function. Once we have done this code, then elsewhere in this file we would no longer be able to use a sum function. We have reassigned it a value. It is now equal to 0 or some other integer rather than being a function. So it's a bad variable name. And it showed up in purple because it's a built-in function, just like min, just like max, just like print. All of those are built-in functions. So is sum. So the flowchart's dumb. My fault. Still, we can go with it. Sum is equal to 0. Now let's input y. First, let's tell them what they're doing. So we're going to do print, enter a positive integer. Something like that. We have to tell them what to do. This script will ask the user to input a number. I'm just being a little bit more specific than the flowchart indicates. Now let's get our input. Y is equal to input. Yes, we could have done both of those in the same statement. Then we're going to convert it into an int. And we could have done all three of these things in one statement, of course. All right, now for our loop. While y is greater than or equal to 0, actually it should just be greater than because adding 0 to something is pointless. But I'm going to follow the flowchart exactly. While that's true, sum is equal to y, and then y is equal to y minus 1. So y minus equals 1. Now we're done, so let's print the sum. We could do a little bit better than that and actually put a word in front of that. and we're done. We don't need to put any comment down here for the stop, and we could if we wanted to. Whatever. Don't need to put every single thing that's in a flowchart in the program. We are interpreting this. All right, let's let it run. So the program is supposed to be called SumY. SumY.py. I let it run. Here it goes. Enter a positive integer, 10, and the sum is 55. And that is true. If you add up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, you do get 55. So we have successfully done B. A is going to be very similar. You'll have to turn this input X into something, into Python, more like that, where it says set pos equal to true. You'll just ignore the word set and just make it say POS equals true. Same with over here where it says set POS is equal to false. That's flowchart talk. We can leave that word set off and just make it POS equals false. And then we modify our print statement to actually be good, valid Python 3, just like we did here. Here we were printing a sum, but it didn't have the Python 3 syntax, so we turned it into the Python 3 syntax. So that's how you do A and B. Let's go take a look at C, D, and E. Now these are 3 functions. We can code all 3 of these functions into one file if we wanted to, or we could code them separately. I'm going to pick one of these to do. Print string. What this does is it will print every character in the string one at a line, one per line. So if we tell it to print string rows, it will print out R-O-S-E, all in one letter. Then there's add values. What add values does is if we give it a string that's a series of digits, it will add all those numbers together and return them. So if we say add values and we pass in a string that consists of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it'll add all those numbers together, return that value. And then there's find max. Find max, again, the input is a series of digits. I think I will do add values. Add values and find max are very similar. Print string is easier than both of them. So I'm going to do the add values function. So I'm going to do a new file. Now to define a function, we use the def keyword, def, add values, and it's going to accept a string, a variable named s. So, as I said, you can ignore the word set. So C is equal to 0. Sum V, the sum of all those numbers, is equal to 0. There we go. Now we have our while loop. While C is less than the length of the string, colon. We're going to get the character out. We're going to convert that character into a number, and we're going to add that number to our sum. So CH is equal to the string at that position. Now let's get the value out. I is equal to the integer version of that. I'm going to turn that into an integer. And then let's add that to our sum. Sum V is sum V plus equals I. And just for grins, we're going to go ahead and print this stuff out so that we can watch the numbers increase. Print C I sum V. And now to make sure that our loop doesn't loop endlessly, we have to increment our counter. So to go 0, 1, 2, 3, all the way up to, but not including the length of the string. So C plus equals 1. Now we're done with the while loop. So I'm going to go back in indentation level. We're going to print the message done here. and we want to return the value that we just calculated. So now down here in main, when we want to call that function, you know, we can make it as simple or as complex as we want it to. We could ask the user to enter the data, or we could just hard code something, but why not let the user enter the data? No, I changed my mind. I could go and look at my instructions. It says C, D, and E involve extracting characters, and it shows hard coding values like that. S2 is equal to 842. So here's the test for C, here's the test for D, and here's the test for E. I may as well code it exactly as shown. Digits is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, since I'm doing D, or looks like I went all the way up to 6. X is equal to add the values of the digits that we just created, and let's print this message. Digits, add value, returned, and then the sum that was returned. Okay, so we have done that. Yes, I probably could have just cut and pasted those lines. So we create a string, we pass it into the add values function. The add value function runs. The while loop extracts each character in turn, converting it into an integer, summing them all up in a variable called sumV, which is eventually returned, stored into X so that we can print it out. So I will call this one sumV. No, I'll call it add values. That's the name of the function. And so it runs. Since the numbers that I told it to add up are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we can watch it go through them. The first number is a 1 at position 0. The second number is a 2 at position 1. The third number is a 3 at position 2, and so on. And all of those numbers added up, 1 plus 2 plus 3 is 10 plus 4 is... I assume that's true. Let's test it again. Let's add up, 4 fours. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it should print out 16. There we go. So adding up those 4s, the 4 4s added up to 16. That's enough of a test, and we can still see the way it works. Position 0 in the string, index value 0 is a 4, index value 1 is also 4, index value 2 is also 4, index value 3 is a 4. Adding them all up gives us 16. If we're going to add up Jenny's phone number, 876-75309, and we can see that run. Here we go. 8675309. The 8 is at position 0. The 6 is at position 1, and so on, all the way up to the end of the string. Adding all those numbers gets us 38. So based on that concept, it ought to be pretty easy to go ahead and code E as well. And C is also pretty easy. It doesn't even need to return anything. E also returns 1. It returns the maximum value of all the numbers. So if we passed in 8675309, then it's going to return a 9 for us to print. C doesn't return anything. It just prints those numbers out, or those letters out. It's just a print function. Just a print function that prints every letter on one line. So it would print an 8 on one line, and a 6 on the next, and a 7 on the next, and so on. I hope that clears it up. Send me a note if you still have any questions over it.